Hey everybody, it's Colton Stombaugh with the Inspire podcast. We're providing you fearless B2B sales, marketing, and management insights. Today, we're joined by Chris West with Nexigen. Chris, how you doing today?
Good afternoon. Great to see you.
And how about you tell the audience a little bit about who Nexigen is, who you are, and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So Nexigen is a managed IT services provider based in greater Cincinnati. Our home office is actually in Newport, Kentucky, but we're about 11 blocks from the Ohio River. So close enough to see the beautiful downtown skyline. We provide IT services on a business-to-business basis. We focus on organizations more or less in the 5 employee to 1,000+ employee range across a variety of verticals: manufacturing, healthcare, finance, etc. We are an organization of about 50+ employees, most of whom are engineering persuasion. And in that organization, I'm actually the director of sales and marketing for Nexigen.
Fantastic. And I think, best and quickly described, though this might not be the official marketing, but human first, customer centric IT services, correct?
Yeah, that's very much the driver. It's a very crowded industry in the managed services world. And one of the things that we've done over the years to differentiate is essentially to focus on people who not only are strong from a technical perspective, but also have a strong a willingness and a strong ability to be able to communicate with other normal, if you will, people, speaking business, but also speaking human, being able to put technical challenges into language that anyone can understand, but also be able to speak to individual specific personal and business requirements.
Absolutely. No, I think that's huge. And really what we're here to talk about today is really the importance of, the role that culture plays in marketing and messaging. And just like you described, the types of people that you bring in to provide top-notch service to your customers, how that looks in your organization, as well as how that manifests itself in your messaging. It's really what we're looking to dive into. And with that, we're also joined by Ron Gerlach. Ron, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Colton. How are you?
Fantastic. And I'll ask you the same question we just asked to Chris. Who are you? Who do you represent? And how do you fit into this marketing and messaging culture first approach?
Well, my role is marketing director for technology and solutions clients. Nexigen and I have been together since they've come aboard with DeanHouston. We've done quite a bit of background work and continue to push them forward. My background is in advertising and marketing as a creative, and then I spent the last 10 years working as director of marketing for 2 global manufacturers before I came aboard with DeanHouston.
So. Fantastic. I know that you work really closely with Chris, to help with that marketing and messaging, so to loop it back to that topic of culture and its importance in client-facing messaging. I mean, Chris, I believe I stole this right from your website, your partner, your friend, and the end of your IT worries, right? So, and you did a great job kind of priming that, but that's a pretty strong statement, and that seems to be one we see across your website and your messaging quite a bit. You talked about that human-first approach, hiring customer-first people, but what really drove the decision to bring that type of messaging, your partner, your friend, that really that's something that indicates strong internal culture? What drove the decision to make that such a core part of your customer-focused messaging?
It was very much, we arrived at it organically, just through the organization and its history and its roots, as well as our founders. So, founded in 2003 by 2 friends who met literally working the Best Buy Tech Bench back in the pre-Geek Squad days. These were folks that had experience in the retail environment, dealing with everyday issues, everyday questions, everyday people as they, would pass by the counter looking for support and help. And really, when the company was founded, they realized that the best way to grow the business when it was small and continue to keep it strong was to build a strong referral network. And the best way to get good referrals is to actually have people who look at you not only as a business partner, but as a confidant, as a friend, as a partner. So it's not so much, where we sat down in a room and said, what's the best way to stand out from the crowd? What we found is that we sat down in a room and you go, what makes us actually stand out? And it wasn't necessarily a technical acumen or a mix of products or services, although those are strong, obviously. It was truly the fact that when you get a referral, a letter or phone call or something like that from one of our clients, they talk about how much they love to work with us, how supportive we are, how we go above and beyond at every opportunity. It's all driven by how do we make sure this customer has an amazing experience.
Okay. Yeah, it's actually, quite fascinating. And it's really interesting that this all started at like the retail tech support level. And like those same tenants that worked there kind of benefited the business as it grew, like you said, a lot of referrals and things like that. So, I even think, past referral, right? Because you got this message public facing, right? So I'd imagine when people are coming to you first, maybe if it's not through a referral, that's the first thing that jumps out to them. What do you see with like new potential customers when they come to you and see that messaging? What does that conversation look like? And is it effective? I'd imagine the answer is yes, because you guys are, exhibiting great growth. But how does that really help frame the conversation, saying, your partner, your friend, and what that customer can expect? And what does that alignment look like?
Well, it's interesting because one of the things that we try to offer as an organization is flexibility. So one of the kind of the key understandings of the managed service provider business model is that you want to try to get all of your clients in sort of a uniform sort of condition as possible, because it simplifies support, leads to greater efficiencies and that sort of thing. Well, that's obviously a goal, but we have the approach we've taken is rather than try to mold our clients to that, is we try to mold our tools and processes to fit them in a better, kind of capacity. It's not uncommon for a client to come to us and say, look, the IT part of it's pretty important to us, but really what's really critical is that we have good, facilitation of communication within our organization as well. We have one client that if their internet connection goes down for 2 days, it's not really a big deal. They can still do what they do. But the key is if machinery within their organization ceases to function properly, that's the end of the road. They have to be able to keep that going. So we've actually worked out an arrangement where any issue that happens to occur in one of their branches, they report it to Nexigen. Nexigen plugs it into our ticketing and tracking system. We have some key questions that we ask during that initial engagement, and then we will actually take care of escalating that issue, whether it's IT related, mechanically related, if it's a utility issue, the power's out, that sort of thing. Like, we will actually assist from top to bottom. And what we've done is we've effectively taken what we do normally for just IT issues and expanded them to, a variety of different other challenges that customer has. So we've essentially become their in-house operations and management team, because we're able to apply those processes that we use everywhere else.
Right.
So it's just one of the different ways that we're able to actually, kind of mold our business to best suit the specific needs of our customer and say, look, we're there for you beyond broken computers. We're there for you as business consultants, as partners, as, a friendly sounding wall to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah. Now that flexibility and kind of the ability to go beyond rigid process to think about, like you said, utilities and the different areas it could be failure points that maybe aren't IT related but still impact IT. I think that's like a really great case study of what that, your friend, your trusted partner really looks like in practice. And I can only imagine, right, one of the core tenets of marketing is differentiation, right? Is how do you set yourself apart from your competition? I can only imagine that, that flexibility, that human problem solving, focusing on the business problem, that has to be one of the core tenets of your differentiation. Is that correct?
It's absolutely the case. So, in the IT world, and I've been in the IT industry for ongoing better than 25 years in various, roles. And if you're out there just trying to move product, you're going to find that there's not much margin there. There's not much opportunity to really differentiate yourself from everybody else who's out there with a shingle out front, selling servers, workstations, network devices, et cetera. The difference is in the value that we bring to the table is actually sitting down with the client and understanding the problem, what it is they're trying to solve. It's not uncommon for, we get called into a client or a prospect, like, I need to get a new server. How can you help me with that? Well, generally my first response will be, so what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Is it because you feel you need to replace the server because that you've done it every 5 years for the past 25 years? Well, do you really need to have a server moving forward? Or is it something that we should move into cloud-based services? Or are you basically hosting a bunch of data that's gone latent? Maybe we should arc that stuff off and just turn the box off and simplify the environment. Other times they might be in a scenario where they're like, I need a new server and it's well thought out and it makes sense, but we'll go through the exercise and actually see if that's the case.
No, again, that customer centricity and like how that sets you apart. So, to bring it down to the tactical side of marketing, and Ron, I'm gonna pick on you a little bit here, I know, we had discussed a little bit, and I know just from the context of like our relationship with you, Chris, is that we, have kind of helped with things like a big web refresh and, some recent messaging and how that looks in the marketplace. So when you're thinking about all this culture, all that rich history, starting back with that pre-Geek Squad Best Buy help desk, what was the process of thinking that, unpacking it to maybe, let's pick on your nice new website a little bit. What did that process look like, unpacking all that history, unpacking that customer centricity, and turning that into a nice and neat customer-facing portal with your website?
Is that for me or Ron? Because for me, it was very much a case of, how do we describe great customer service? Right. That was the question that had stumped us at Nexigen. And during, our initial meetings, we kept wanting to say, it's like, how do you demonstrate trust? What's the picture, the visual, the audio, whatever that is, what's that medium that shows that we're trustworthy? Usually that's the sort of thing you earn trust, right? But in order to be able to get the opportunity, you need to be able to visualize that in some way. And really that's where Ron and his creative team, they really kind of surprised us in terms of the visuals they created and how they kind of melded stuff, items that you would see and think that shows security, that shows trust, that shows friendship, all those things, and then mixes it into, we're a tech group. Like, that's what we do largely. I mean, we're a technical organization, but those things put together is what defines Nexigen.
Yeah. Okay, Ron. Now, I've got this thing in my head of Ron, like doing the deposition, the light in your face, asking you all these questions. Is that how it really went, Ron? I mean, what did that look like?
Yeah, it really was. That's a good example of the way we did this. We were lucky enough to partner with Chris and Nexigen to really start doing a deep dive into not only who they are and what they do, but what was the core element to be able to connect with the customer in there. One thing that we found through having a lot of discussion with Chris, a lot of discussion with Nexigen, and being able to talk to some of their customers as well, is that the trust element was vital, especially for the type of business that Nexigen is in. I talked to customer after customer who had glowing things to say about Nexigen, and it wasn't always necessarily because of the work that they do or the offering that they have. A lot of times that trust was centered on, I believe these guys, I believe they know what they're doing, that they wouldn't lead us astray, that they would tell us exactly and be transparent in an area that a lot of their customers, I don't think, are real confident about whether they're getting the truth or the right message. And when we were able to break it down to that truth level, to that understanding of you can trust them, they will partner with you on it, that's where we felt that the marketing nugget was, and we could start to build out from there and really find a unique place for Nexigen compared with their competition.
Yeah, so as you're sitting there and talking to some of Nexigen customers, kind of doing firsthand, I guess, voice of the existing customer exercises, and you're sitting there, you're mining, you're talking, and then you come to that nugget of gold, right? And those nuggets are always easy to find in hindsight, right? I can imagine there was a lot of the exposition and story on on where they came from, and then you get that nugget from customers. Then what did that process look like? I mean, like I'm evoking the visual when you go to Nexigen.com right now, and you've got, a digital ones and zeros hand reaching out, and really shaking somebody's hand, and, with that your partner, your friend vocabulary and vernacular. What was the process to get to that point, right? So you get that insight from the customer. It's obvious that that's a big part of Nexigen's internal culture. What does that translation process look like to that customer-facing approach?
It's the combination of both. It's looking for commonalities between what the customer is saying and what our discussion with Nexigen is. Part of the process that we go through is having that really transparent and honest conversation with the client right up front. And a lot of times, especially I think in Nexigen's case, we were able to go past just the low-hanging fruit that you would expect to say in a client marketer conversation, and really dig down past that to find those what you call golden nuggets. So we saw them with Nexigen, and then we started to hear the same thing from the customer. And it really became apparent after a while that this is really the foundation that everybody agrees upon. So it made perfect sense for us to go back and concept different ideas to run past Nexigen to let them see what we're thinking. But I think we felt, and I could probably speak for Chris on this, they probably felt too, that there was some level of those hands coming together, that connection and trust issue between the customer and Nexigen, that was really, at the end of the day, that's where it was going to land. And then it was just a matter of figuring out what the most creative, eye-catching execution of that was.
Okay, that's great. As somebody who was outside of the process, I understand I'm potentially asking a dangerous question here. So, Chris, please be kind. Right. So Ron and his team go and refine these visual treatments and show them to you. What was that like? Was it obvious from the gate that we were going down the right path, or what did the reveal moment feel like, I guess?
It was hair raising. So the basically my initial reaction to the concepts that Ron and the team presented were pretty mind blowing. I was like, we'd asked these hard questions. How do you define these sort of nebulous concepts? How do you transition a feeling or an emotion into a physical manifestation of that that concept? And we were blown away. They came back with, we had kind of niggling sort of like feedbacks, that sort of thing. But generally speaking, we went through the portfolio and we were astonished at the job they had done. They'd answered a lot of our questions. I mean, there's always opportunity for refinement, and that's something that we continue to do. But like just out of the gate, like we loved everything they came back with. It was fantastic.
We'll assume that that's completely honest, I guess, Chris.
I am not being paid anything to be here. I am not being paid anything to be here. And, and actually that was kind of the core tenet was, from the very beginning of starting to work with DeanHouston, through the discovery process, through all the different kind of like laborious steps that took place in order to kind of establish the partnership, we could tell that DeanHouston and Nexigen had a lot of the same precepts. Very personable, very customer driven, very open. There were no real indications that, well, this is how we do things, so that's what you guys need to do. It was very much along the lines of, you came to us with a problem, now let's ask you and find out what the real challenge is.
I think there's something to be said for that, right? A little bit of sacred geometry where you've got alignment between the two organizations, and that value system is very similar, that it probably created a good result. But like on that topic of alignment, obviously this is really important to your customers and the messaging, but really thinking about the alignment with your internal organization and culture. I can only imagine, we've all worked, with IT firms and different organizations and things like that. I'm sure a lot of our audience has as well, and that alignment between the message you're sending and what you're talking about being your service principles. You don't see and feel that all the time in the IT world. So that customer centricity, that human focused problem solving, is the branding that you're running with, the messaging that you're running with, is that fortifying and making your internal processes, maybe things like hiring, talent acquisition, just the way you're doing business? Are you seeing bleed over into the culture and helping? Is that almost reinforcing your operations in some ways?
Yeah, so it's interesting you should ask that, because one of the things that we did in conjunction with DeanHouston as we were basically building, as we were kind of discovering ourselves or answering our own questions, was we built an internal branding guide or communication guide. And it was interesting because when we handed these beautifully done packages out to everybody in the organization during the rollout, the feedback we got was like, that's what I've been trying to say. You guys finally found a way to say what we've been thinking all along, and it created this, basically it allowed us to establish a language that we could all agree on as an organization, internally and externally, and it's self-reinforcing. And you're absolutely right. Essentially what it's done is it's given us a common theme to drive against. It's like, we need to do this hard thing, but the reason we're doing this hard thing is because that's what we do. We do the hard stuff in order to make ourselves better, to be more competitive in the marketplace, to provide better service, better experiences for our clients, but also so our employees have something to be proud of. They can really buy into this whole message that, we're a customer service organization, and we're driven to provide an amazing, experience for both our clients and our employees, because our employees, frankly, are our most important asset. In the fact that we got such a strong internal buy-in, even from our kind of traditionally gruff, introverted sort of technical people, was really gratifying to see that we really had struck a chord.
Well, yeah, and it creates, again, I think we'll probably have this in the episode description, because it seems to be a word that comes up, is that phrase alignment, right? It's not just alignment with customer needs and your messaging, it's also alignment with your internal core values and your customers' needs as well.
It's very authentic.
Yeah.
Very authentic. And that was actually part of the conversation is we don't want to just create a marketing schema because it sounds good and it's trendy and it's, what rings well with committees or whatever, focus groups. We want it to be authentic, and people internally, especially, to be able to look at it and go, this is real stuff, right? Like I'm willing to own this as an employee or as a member of the Nexigen group.
Absolutely. And, with that said, I mean, what has been like the early, I know it's, been a matter of months since this is all rolled out. What has been, the impression from the marketplace? I mean, what are some of the things you've heard? What's been the just general reaction?
Generally, it's well regarded. They seem to think that the people that I've talked to, both prospective clients and actually prospective employees, they'll take a look at the website and they're like, I really learned a lot about who you guys are. Like, the website gives a certain window into your organization that isn't necessarily the case when you have, a public presence that's built by someone who's trying to drive a specific message. The authenticity is apparent.
And, that has to be, incredibly difficult. It sounds like, from the core and the inception of Nexigen, like that was a real major part of who you and the team has been, period. But looking for advice for the audience, right? If they're struggling to figure out that alignment, right? And what's the intersection of internal values and customer, a message that's relevant and resonates with customers. I mean, it sounds like a lot of that was introspection and looking inward, and answering questions, and maybe that was facilitated by third party, in this case, DeanHouston. But what advice you would have for maybe people in your seat jumping into that? Like, what are the things that you started thinking of first? What did you look for maybe in that third party partner? How did that look? What did that feel like?
Yeah, so honesty is a big thing, right? Honesty and a willingness to be candid, and that's not just with others, but also with yourself. So if you're not actually being honest about what your goals are, also not honest about what your strengths are, if you're trying to model an organization around a strength set that isn't really there, then it's going to be an uphill battle. Fortunately, my job is relatively easy because the culture of the business is one that's so valuable in and of itself. So it was just a matter of, identifying it and then translating that into language that was, that kind of could transcend, preconceptions. So that part of it, actually was DeanHouston solved that for us. Like they basically held the right mirror up, so we were able to identify really, what the right language was, right, what the right concepts were. But I think that, when choosing a partner, you need to look for someone who aligns with you. If you're looking for, a specific attribute that isn't supported by that particular organization, or if they don't see that as being a high priority and their people don't see that as a priority, you're really just going to kind of get a machination of that. You're not going to get something that has authenticity to it. That's something that you're willing to wear on your lapel and be proud of. So, I guess that probably at the end of the day that, there's the two basic functions of honesty of who you are and what you plan to be and want to be, and authenticity and how you deliver it.
No, I think that that's a huge insight. Again, it goes back to alignment, right? Find and work with people that are aligned with your own values. Look at your own values first. Look in the mirror. I think you mentioned, and move forward from there. I think that's probably worth the whole 30 minutes people spent just watching this. But, I think, well, any other closing thoughts on that before I give you an opportunity to make a shameless plug, Chris?
Well, I feel like the whole cast has been a shameless plug, which I appreciate. But, it really, at the end of the day, it's you have to have a message that can be consistent and that your people can buy into. But by the same token, you have to take good care of your people as well. So if your people buy into your message, which is one of, the customer is absolutely the core of the business, but the employees come first, which is largely how we look at it. During the COVID situation, I guess we can talk about that, but during the entire, COVID and work from home transition, for us, it was very simple because we had a high level of trust internally. Our people were very much bought into the concept of, making the effort. No one has to be bribed to work long hours. We do it when we need to do it, right? And then, that the whole transition for us then was straightforward. We dropped in and we were there and we're ready for our customers when they needed us. And it just kind of goes back to that basic core tenet of taking care of your people better than maybe not better than, but taking care of your people, and they'll take care of your clients, and then your clients will provide the feedback and the support that you need to be successful.
And it's easy to guess, but I will ask the question because, you did mention, we'll save all the cliches of new normal and all those things. But, I have to imagine, right, the markets have shifted. People are going, and working from home extensively. When I think about that, I think about IT, right? And, how has that messaging helped you, in probably a time when, right now people are probably in, again, this is just a guess, in the market for IT services and have new constraints and requirements. How has your messaging served you through that period of time and the rapid shift and work from home and all that from a, I guess, maybe customer communication standpoint?
Well, I think probably the number one response that we got is that our clients just knew that regardless of what they had to do to pivot to weather the storm, we would be there to support them. They knew, and they were it was reinforced to them that when they called, that we'd answer the phone, that when they had a challenge, we'd have a solution. In fact, some of our clients were so convinced of that, they began doing things on their own and then called us and said, "Hey, we're here already. Now what do we do?" And we're like, "Well, you should have called us 2 days ago, but let's get it figured out." Right? We appreciate your ambition and your initiative, but it would have been simpler beforehand. But having said that, it truly was a case where we had the highest level of trust from our clients, and they knew that regardless of what came their way, we'd be able to respond to that and support them in that.
Okay. Absolutely. No, that it makes a lot of sense. And again, it's again that alignment and honesty and truthfulness to your core values paralleled exactly when customer needs were the highest. Alignment.
Absolutely. We've had zero loss in our customer base since the COVID-19 work from home and all the different turmoil in the economy. And that says a lot. Not only do we have a great group of customers as our client base, which is, a testament to them, but also that our customers stuck with us and we've stuck with them.
I can only imagine as time goes on and people, are looking for new providers here, you've got a very compelling message to help them understand, Lord forbid anything like this happens ever again. We're the type of organization that's going to help you weather the storm effectively,
Put it together.
Absolutely. So, Ron, how about you, man? You have any closing thoughts here on, and again, I think alignment is the word of the day.
No, I think Chris said it very well, and I would agree with everything he said completely. The authenticity part of it was key. In order for us and Nexigen to partner in the way that we did and continue to have success in that, there was no shortcut involved in it. We had to trust each other, and then we had to show each other that we had to prove that trust out. So we couldn't put together a template idea or plug them into a system to make it work. We had to prove to them that we were listening to them, that we heard what they said, and that we incorporated that into the work. That got Chris and the executives at Nexigen excited, and that just dominoed down to the employees. So everything just worked fluidly and connected, and it continues to now. But there's no shortcut to any of that.
Absolutely. And Chris, last question here, because I know we're coming up pretty close to time. But if I'm a business looking for managed IT services, how would you recommend I start looking for providing?
Well, first of all, the first thing you need to do is find out, what your needs are. And oftentimes the best way to do that is to interview more than one. Get a few providers in, set some appointments up, see what kind of questions they ask, because you have to think in terms of hiring an employee, if you will, except much more important, because you're going to be handing off a lot of risk. You're going to be, asking them to assume a lot of responsibility, and you're essentially going to hand them the keys to the castle. So, get to know who they are, have some conversations with them, find out what their experiences are, check the references, see what their customers have to say about them. And then at the end of the day, you go with the one that seems to make the most sense, and you're going to kind of just, throw your hat in the ring and see what happens.
Right. And I can only imagine if I'm making that hiring decision, and thankfully I'm not, I'm going to want to find somebody with great communication skills and who's responsive. So maybe visit Nexigen.com. You don't have to say it. I'll just suggest it.
Yes, that's a perfect example. Go to Nexigen.com. Check us out on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Give us a call if you'd like. We have people available. Actually, for tech support, we have people available 24/7, which is kind of a big boon for us. But we're certainly available throughout the daylight hours. We have locations here in the Midwest, and we're expanding as quickly as the market will allow us. But yeah, we're out there. We're standing by, and we're ready to support you.
Godspeed, Chris. And thank you so much for joining us. I think from a marketing perspective, that idea of alignment and cultural values, messaging, and what the value that brings to customers, I think you've served up a lot of food for thought for everybody watching. Really appreciate that. And Ron, thanks so much for getting this coordinated and providing some insights from the agency side, man.
Thank you, Colton.
So, Chris, again, thank you. Great to talk to you. And,
happy to be part of the conversation. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. And to the audience, until we see you again. So another great episode of Inspire, and hope to see you soon. Have a great one.